Hello there beautiful, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now in today's video we're going to be covering a pretty nasty mission, dungeon, Lufenia mission, as well as the banner that accompanies it in Cait Sith. Yes, I'm saying Cait Sith and not Cait She because to me that sounds better. So if you'd like to know more about Cait Sith, the LD that comes with him, which is pretty contentious in the community, again, in the sense that the LD's pretty good, but everything else maybe not so much, then we can have a deeper look at what Cait Sith's all about, and of course the mission that follows it and how we can clear it. So if that's all stuff that interests you, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Of course, don't forget to check out all of my social links down below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon, where you can find me streaming all the time these days. And before we carry on with anything else, may we just point out the announcement of the force weapons and the link gauge mechanics over in the JP side of the game. Big shout outs to Rem for providing these particular infographics if you'd like to know more about what force weapons and Shinryu difficulty is looking to be all about. Obviously, we're going to cover out much later because this channel is most definitely focused on the global version of the game, and we're not going to see this for a while yet, but it's very interesting to see where this is going to go and how it's going to unfold. And of course this time next week we will be looking at the meetup that I have planned over in London, so if you'd like more details for that, then definitely jump in my Discord and ask around in the meetup channel on there, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. Over on Patreon, I do shout out one of my patrons at random every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Stevie Rex, who has Yuna on their title card, and as I've said many a time before, a massive thank you goes out to all of my patrons, including Stevie, for supporting this channel as much as they do, because it means the absolute world to me, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. So if you're interested in joining up with Patreon, then there's loads and loads of benefits, including having a title card made for you just like this one, to go at the end of all of my videos, and plenty more. And of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia Opera Omnia, with special mentions going obviously to Tom Breed Troop, to Ren from Dissidia DB, DissidiaCompendium.com, and Leo Bob for their translations over on Reddit, as they're all resources that I use in this channel, and they're all, as well as many others, extremely valuable to the community at large. So as usual, let's take a look at the banner and what's featured on it over in the JP side. We just had a banner that was very heavily changed over in Global, but what we know at the very least to come with Cait Sith. So as far as we know, the banner will contain Cait Sith, their LD, EX, all of that good stuff, and also another chance to get at Gabranth, who I won't talk about in too much great detail here because I think many people who wanted Gabranth probably have him by now, but he's still a very valuable cool ability if nothing else, adding HP damage, poison, all that kind of stuff in a nicely consolidated kit that just works very well as an LD cool ability if you're not using the likes of Kurasami, etc., because of maybe like immunity to like imperils, things like that. He's a nice thing to have. And then it's going to be another chance to get Vayne's BT, which I still haven't gotten, so suffice to say I'm probably going to throw at least a little something into this banner just to try and get Vayne more than anything else. But let's take a look at Cait Sith. So Cait Sith gets a rework. It's not a particularly exciting rework, but it's a rework nevertheless. So again, thank you to Leo Bob for their translations. Very sad to see that they're not doing them so much anymore, but I'm going to continue to shout Leo Bob out because these translations that I'm using, he's written, or they've written, and I'm really happy to continue to do that. So Toy Soldier gets an extra use and some extra bravery hits. That's kind of it. And then Mog Dance Extend, like that is quite nice because it means that it's a free turn, it doesn't add to turn count, and now it heals, as well as granting the various buffs that he had before, which were like physical attack, brave regens, etc. So they're not great, realistically. Like, Mog Dance is fine, and all of the pluses and double plus versions of themselves are still applicable based on the fact that we get, or that we have the number of, like, it's all dependent on the number of buffs that you have across the party. So Cheerful Gift, etc., and the plus versions, it adds up to about 10 buffs, including his dice buff from his EX, so that you don't have to put too many on, and this will be very important when it comes to his LD. His EX is kind of crap, to be honest. At this point, it doesn't really do a lot. It gives you the dice buff, which is Initial Bravery, which quite honestly, at this point, is a pretty throwaway stat. At this point, there are very few characters that really care about Initial Bravery and Brave Regen. That's kind of it for the time being. However, when we look at the LD is very interesting. So you get Bravery Battery, a double HP dump equal to Cait Sith's current Bravery twice, and it doesn't consume Bravery, it insta-breaks all enemies, and it provides this new buff called Lucky Girl. Lucky Girl, as a buff, is very, very powerful. It's only on Cait Sith, which is kind of annoying, and a lot of people have drawn comparisons from this to Setzer in that it's almost like a reverse Setzer. So what it does is it increases critical hit rate by 100%, so you're always going to be critting. Very similar to Barret, that kind of thing. You get Brave Overflow, Stolen Overflow, and Gained, so both the same. You also get Party Increased Bravery, so a Bravery Battery by a percentage of max Bravery for every critical hit from the party. And this, as well as party HP damage up and critical brave damage going up a lot. So 50% for crit brave damage, bear in mind that you've just had your critical rate increase to 100%, and party HP damage going up to a maximum of 30% is pretty huge, honestly. And having that battery go off alongside a character that has brave gains up and things like that to counteract the Lufenia plus sort of bravery gain reductions, it can be a method of counteracting that, and because this buff provides so many things all at once, it's very desirable. The problem with Cait Sith is everything else. Lucky Girl is ridiculous on its own in a vacuum. It does provide a heck of a lot, but honestly, like, I was fairly blindsided by this because I sat there and I thought I really like what Lucky Girl has to offer, but the fact that you have a character, Yang is kind of the best comparison I have to this, where you are using them for one thing and they are literally just sat there for everything else. Yeah, sure, you've got healing in Mog Dance, but there's a lot of buff slots that get taken up, and you know it doesn't gel well with like all characters. Although Vayne is a character that he definitely does go very well with because Vayne benefits from Lucky Girl, as does any character that hits a lot of bravery hits, a lot of HP damage hits. It's a very powerful buff. So if you're happy to have a character that is only really providing that one thing, but that one thing is really good, then Cait Sith is definitely somebody you want to look at. The other thing to bear in mind is that the effects are incremental from Lucky Girl based on how many buffs your party has. So bearing in mind that Cait Sith will provide up to 11 buffs including Lucky Girl, because he does three buffs across the board and then an extra one for himself in Dice and then another one on Lucky Girl. If Lucky Girl was a party-wide buff, I don't know whether I'd prefer it or not, because if it were party-wide, you'd be able to switch out Cait Sith for a friend unit and be able to still capitalize on it. But because it's restricted to Cait Sith, you can also kind of use like Sid Mao or something like that so that you're able to stop Cait Sith from getting a turn and he just kind of be there. But it's a very, very powerful thing. But whether Cait Sith's Lucky Girl buff is enough to justify the rest of his kit being honestly quite poor at this point in time. Like, Toy Soldier is, honestly, it's just terrible. It's just not a very good move. It doesn't really do anything. It's not even a double HP dump. It doesn't really do anything particularly crazy. It's split HP damage. You get physical attack up from it. It doesn't do anything really, and so he's not really adding to your damage. He's just a support character in terms of what he's providing, which is fine, especially considering how good Lucky Girl is. But in this day and age where characters seem to be damage dealers as well as everything else that they're doing, whether Lucky Girl is worth the trade-off to you, the player, of the rest of his kit, that's up to you. Now, in terms of cool abilities and stuff, I think this is actually where a lot of Cait Sith's strengths really are, because both of his cool abilities are actually pretty good. Well, his regular cool ability is really good. The LD cool ability is really good. But Toy Soldier, because of Cait Sith's EX plus buffs, he comes in and gives the party attack up, max bravery up, and the cheerful gift buff, which is brave and HP regen, and you get a split HP attack off of it. Nothing super crazy there. But the LD call ability for Lucky Girl gives you everything that you would have gotten from playing Lucky Girl from Cait Sith, except the HP damage increase, because if we had that, that really would be pretty crazy. But so you're getting the really interesting kind of brave gain off of critical hits. You're getting the crit rate up. You're getting, also don't get the crit brave damage up. So I will say that as well. And it is also still reliant on buffs. But given that when Cait Sith comes in for the call ability, you're getting 9 of them off the bat, and you're getting the double like HP attack, the instant break to everybody, the bravery battery. It's a really good call ability. However, I have come around to the thinking by looking at other content creators and, people in JP, and I find that the LD call ability tends to get used a lot more than Cait Sith themselves, but it's a very, very powerful effect. Again, whether that one effect is worth the rest of Cait Sith's kit being a part of your party, that's an entirely up to you type deal. I will say, however, that Cait Sith does have another rework coming up later down the line where you get the EX doing 4 HP damage attacks. You get 4 HP damage attacks off the LD. You also get multiple HP damage attacks off of Toy Soldier, so the damage is a little bit more present. But if that's what you're worried about, you could always pull 4 in when he comes back. I believe it's alongside Realm LD. So if that's something that you're interested in, then maybe you could pull 4 in there. In terms of high armor, he has Encouragement Keystone, and he increases party HP damage by 15%. I think you could go for this on the back of the fact that if you're going to use Cait Sith, then having as much out of Cait Sith as possible is probably worthwhile, and you don't really get much better than a party-wide HP damage up by 15% in terms of high armor. But I think in terms of using Cait Sith, it's something you're actually going to have to ask yourself as to whether you're going to use Cait Sith themselves, or whether you're going to use the LD call, or whether you don't really feel like you need either of them. I don't think there is a wrong answer here. I think Cait Sith is really good, and I'm probably going to throw some tickets at it on the back of the fact that I still really want Vayne BT. But I think I could live without it. Like, there are enough auras and powerful ways of batterying brave gain increases that he doesn't have. But he's got enough combo potential that he has a lot of interest for a lot of players, and there are others who have no interest in him at all. So this one's pretty much an entirely up to you type deal. So now let's take a look at the mission dungeon that's going to come along with Cait Sith. Now this is a mission, much like Vayne's one, that a lot of people are really worried about because of the way that the fight works. It's actually a monster we've fought lots and lots of times in the past, but not one that had a Lufenia orb, and it's the white priests that we've seen since pretty much the beginning of the game. In the main mechanics is that at the beginning you have 2 adds and the boss. The boss is untouchable and doesn't become tangible until after the adds are dealt with, but then when the boss becomes sort of tangible and you can actually hit it, after its next turn, it's then going to re-summon those adds, which obviously is bad because it extends your turn count, it makes things harder, it's a bit of a pain in the butt. But the things that make this fight challenging are twofold. You have the orb itself, which is the orb is +8 when the enemy is afflicted with a poison or a sap, any kind of that like poison type effect, and +1 when it's broken. So obviously you want to bring Vayne or something for the +1 on broken, then great. However, how can you inflict poison on something if you can't hit it? So there's 2 ways of doing this. You can have an aura that poisons, so something like Cloud of Darkness, or you can use call abilities that have, or even bring characters into play that have on entry poison effects. So Gabranth or Faris or anything like that that has on entry poison effects, because then they'll still get the poison during their turn and that will still affect the orb. The other thing to bear in mind is that at less than 80, 60 and 40%, the boss gets an instant turn regardless of where they are in the timeline and will jump forward in order to resurrect the adds. And the only way in which you can do this, or to stop this, is to either paralyze or otherwise incapacitate the enemy in order to stop that from happening. And for this reason, this is why so many of the clears that you see for this fight are using Agrius, because Agrius can inflict the poison with her LD or her LD bravery attack, and then reapply the LD or regain the attack for the confusion. And between Agrius and Ramu and things like that, you can paralyze the enemy indefinitely until you're able to kill them. You can also use sort of atypical ways of paralysis. It doesn't have to be Agrius, though Agrius is by far the easiest way of doing it, and take characters like, you know, where you could take Ash, or you could take a Cryal Call in combination with Ramuh, but obviously you have to let the enemy take turns, because otherwise they're not going to be poisoned in order for the orb to go off. So it's, realistically, it's a bum rush fight. Like, you are trying to really, really push to get the fight cleared as quickly as possible, and they don't actually have the most health in the world, but if you're not breaking the enemy consistently with the likes of Vayne, then you only have a limited amount of time in order to allow the enemy to act so that the poison affects them, but you can't let them actually act so that they don't resummon the ads. It's a pain in the backside, this fight. I won't mince words with it. It's a fight that a lot of people were not looking forward to with this particular set of Lufenia pluses. But if you are bringing characters that can just bum rush it, I have seen 0 paralysis clears that use things like Ishtola, Hope, you know, or even just Barts. So just characters that can just push the fight as far forward as possible. You know, you've also got access to, like I said, Vayne. If you have Vayne and re-breaks on constantly, that gives you a bit more time, and at least makes it so that Vayne is able to continue to push during, if you have his BT, you can use that like to push the orb further back, or during a summon, you can re-break to push the orb up to give you more time. But the real trick to this fight is going to be balancing the number of turns that you have before the enemy acts, but making sure the enemy doesn't actually act when they get a turn, so that they take the poison, you get your +8 to your orb, giving you a bit more time to focus the damage down before they end up wanting to resummon those ads. So keeping them paralyzed, keeping them incapacitated is going to be absolutely key to this fight. So let's talk about whether one should pull for Cait Sith. Now, I'm in two minds when it comes to Cait Sith, because I think Lucky Girl is incredibly good. Like, I didn't mention it enough when I was talking about it, but having batteries on characters that shouldn't have them and in between bravery hits is something that's never happened at this point. So, like, for example, if you're using Zac or Vayne or anything like that that has a lot of bravery hits, and you're now batterying off of those hits thanks to the buff of a different character, it's really powerful. And getting literally, you know, 50% brave damage, which is already increased because you're always critting, is really powerful, as well as up to 30% on HP damage and your brave overflow gains and everything. On top of all of the effects that he has, in terms of auras, Cait Sith actually isn't very good though. All of his stuff comes from buffs, not auras, apart from Lucky Girl itself. And, you know, it's really good. The rest of his kit just isn't at this point. So if the LD call ability and the LD ability itself are enough for you to make up for what he's lacking, then go in for him. I think he's like really interesting to say the least, and I would very much love to have the LD call ability more than anything else. But given that I just pitied Vayne, I re-looked at the situation, because originally I was like, I'm gonna go gems on this banner, I really want Lucky Girl, and that was it. And then I really looked at it again, I'm like, do I actually want this character, or do I just want the LD call ability? I think I just want the LD call ability. Can I live without the LD call ability? Yeah, I probably could. Do I still want it? Yeah, but I want a lot of things. You know, it's one of those types of situations. But I just think that he's so unique and so interesting that I want to experiment with him. But like I said, outside of that LD, he's pretty duff. Like, Toy Soldier and Dice are just bad attacks. At least up until Cait Sith gets the C90, which is not for a long while yet. And he is the type of character that just kind of sits there. And you kind of rely on your other two characters for damage, and that might not be very appealing to certain players. And also it's important to bear in mind that because it's all reliant on the number of buffs you have, not only do you have to stay on top of the Lucky Girl buff itself, but you have to stay on top of all of the other buffs so that it's actually doing something. So there is a lot of micromanagement involved in Cait Sith, and without letting him take turns where he's not doing a lot of damage, you can't maintain the buffs. He can be a little bit more awkward than he looks. But Lucky Girl, as a buff, on its own, in a vacuum, is extremely powerful. Gabranth is nice to have on the board. Like, he helps with the mission, definitely. And he has great call abilities, because there is a lot of situations where you can use him and not the likes of Kurasame, etc. That's pretty much all you really want him for at this point, and anyone who wants him probably already has him at this point, because he's come out multiple times. He's been like a secondary character to other banners in the past. If you can get access to him, then fantastic, but I would consider him a consolation prize, if that, if you're chasing this banner at all. But for me, it's another chance for Vayne BT, and if I did get it, I'd be pretty happy about it, but I don't think I'm willing to go super deep into it for a character that I can ultimately live without. So finally, of course, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, my beautiful viewers, can have your chance to have your voice heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why that might be the case. So, big thank you, as always, to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments, and it's always very valuable to have so many other opinions so that people can look at these things and see that it's not just my opinion that we're talking with here. But, going into the numbers for Cait Sith's banner, 18% said yes, queen, and they wanted to use all gems. 59% said yes, please, and that they were willing to use 100 or more tickets. 14% said meh, less than 100 tickets, and 9% of people said nope. So from a personal standpoint, had I not just pitied Vayne LD, I'd have probably gone all in on this, because I want as many opportunities to get hold of Vayne's BT as possible, and if I can pick up an interesting, cool character that does have very powerful qualities along the way, then yeah, I would have been pretty happy to go pretty heavily into this. So if you want a nice amount of resources, then this is a pretty good banner. However, because I took a bit of a dive, I'm now in the meh, less than 100 tickets section, I think. Though sound off in the comments below and tell me if you think I'm completely wrong on this. I'm very interested to hear from you guys and whether you would, whether you're all going all in on this, because a lot of people seem to be in the 100+ tickets bracket when it comes to the votes themselves. So let's go into some comments. J-Dog says, I'll be gemming Cait Sith as he's one of my favourite characters and I also don't have Gabranth. Cait's LD is super powerful, especially when paired with units who have multiple HP dumps. However, the rest of his kit is quite meh. The rest of his kit is a bit dated and needs some sort of update to stay competitive, which won't happen for a while. The heals are nice and the brave gains are fine, but with bosses now having massive brave reductions, it's just not enough on its own. It reminds me of Aphmau in that you bring in to enable other characters to like Tifa, Zidane or Garland with rework to shine even brighter. Garland is one of the characters that makes me think I want Cait Sith, because I really like Garland, and I'm tempted, because of having to pity Vayne and possibly having to BT token him as well, to skip twins as much as it kills me, because I really don't want to, because they're really good. And going with Garland instead, because he gets reworked to have a load more HP dumps, and that benefits a lot from Cait Sith. But I just don't know at this point. I'm very, very torn with Cait Sith, and I'm very, very interested to see, like I said, what other people say on the matter. Diamond Dragoon says, I'm going to try with about 100 tickets. I do like the improved in healing abilities, and his unique buff is nice, but I know I want to pull for Realm next summer, and I'm just not sure how much I need him right this minute. Luck be a Moogle tonight. I'm not super fussed by Realm next summer, because it's at that tail end of when I want to be saving up for Force weapons and stuff like that. But if I didn't pull for him here, I probably could wait and go for it there. If I got him now, I wouldn't want to pull for Realm on her own, and having Cait Sith with the C90 is really good. Yeah, this one's just one that's really messing with my head, to be honest. Booper Wiggum says, I'll throw 100 or so tickets, but I don't think I'll use Cait Sith much outside of a call, so we'll make do if I don't get him. He doesn't come around again until March, as far as I'm aware, but I'm saving any deep pulls now until Orin. I'm also saving up for Orin, because I think Orin's full break is too good to pass up, and he's just an extremely good character after his LD comes out. But, I do want Cait Sith, I just don't think I'm going to need him going forward. I just think that he has so many unique and interesting interactions with characters I happen to like that I think it would be a shame not to throw anything at it, especially considering I still want that BT. Like I said, sound off in the comments below, if you were in my position, what would you do? And then finally, Kellen says, I'm pulling Cait Sith with gems, even though I have Gabranth, because tickets are just untrustworthy at the moment. Not that gems are better, but I digress, I hear that. It's not just to take advantage of his call, but also to see if I can place him in other teams. He's a weird support and not always the best, but the damage up gains can't be underestimated, even if there are other characters that do better. I enjoy puzzle piece characters like Cait Sith, since it helps me to learn more about the mechanics of Dissidia, and look forward to seeing what I throw together. This so much this. I feel exactly the same way. I love characters like this because they are weird and quirky and they like allow me to do weird things. Like, yeah, I pull for like the hype characters like your Sid Reigns, etc. But it's the Aphmau's and the Cait Siths and the enablers that I enjoy most. So I'm kind of I just don't know with this one. So sound off and let me know what you guys would think. So a massive thank you goes out to all you guys for your comments. It's extremely valuable, and I hope that this whole thing has given people a better picture of what they can come to expect from Cait Sith. So that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in as always. Let me know, like I said, what you think of Cait Sith and whether you're actually looking for Gabranthia. Maybe the cool abilities are something you're looking for in general, because I definitely think this is a great banner for cool abilities if you don't have anything from it. And obviously don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications of future videos I might be making, and come and join me on Twitch for all sorts of shenanigans and buffoonery that goes on there as well. And it'll be lovely to see you. And obviously don't forget about the meetup next week as well, where I'm really looking forward to seeing some of you guys in real life. So thanks again, and I will see you next time. Take care.